Hi, it's me again with Corel Draw Tips and Tricks. Somebody sent me this file, evidently bought a file at the truck. I can't stand these kits because they leave a gap so they can cut them out and be shipped all in one piece. But sometimes these are hard to get out. They can cause a break or they can cause a rough spot. So we're going to eliminate that. I don't understand this part being backwards. Maybe inadvertently we flipped it around. I don't, if you want the logo in the wordage, you might want to do that later. In this particular one, there's no engraving. I think the turquoise or the light blue line is a vector engrave. You see like that right there on that gear? That's going to cause a little problem. They put two of them. So we're going to eliminate some of this stuff. I took all your other pieces and put them on their own page, mainly to make it easier for the video where you could always put them back. I personally would not cut all this out, but one at a time. Even if you have a piece of wood this big, if you get a cut that doesn't cut and you don't recut it, you could put it right back and recut it. And there's a couple of videos, because probably going to cut this out of 1/8" birch plywood. Sometimes glue pockets and knots can cause it not to cut. But what we're going to do, we're going to go up to Object Group and Ungroup All. I am going to go to Edit, Find and Replace, and just go to Find Object. I'm going to select that blue and from Selection. And then I'm going to ask it to find all, and I'm going to Control G. I'm going to set my nudge factor on 18 inches. I'm going to go ahead and move your I'm not going to probably use the duplicate distance, but you need to set that on 0, 0. Now with the red, we can nudge that out of the way. You don't even need that. But there's our turquoise. Picked out all the turquoise. I would make these black and make them a hairline. I would make all these red and make them all a hairline. Okay? That might mess around with the logo, and it did. So you might want to move the logo out before you do that. Now I'm going to attempt to close this gap on all of them at one time. Parallel dimension tool, go from node to node. We got 0.02. If we move it out, we got 0.02 or less. So we're good to go with that. So now, if this works, I'm going to select everything and then select everything with the shape tool. I am going to go to Windows, Dockers, Join Curves, and I'm going to set my nudge factor on 0.02. I think that's what it was, and hit apply. It might have been 0.2. I can't really remember. Maybe it's 0.2. Let's measure it again. No, it's 0.02. So let's do that again. Let's get rid of the Find and Replace Docker. You have to select everything and then hit your shape tool. So let's go 0.03. Oh, you know what? I need to select them all with the shape tool again. And then I'm going to put it back to 0.02. That quickly, it closed the gap on all those gaps. So now when they cut out, you'll just be able to pick them up and take them out. So you need to do that on all your pages. You don't need this piece, but I'm going to put it back. That's just to cut it out. Let's say you have a bigger piece of wood and you want to cut them out. Now, some of these are all vector engraved. So this is how I would do this. Let me see these circles. Yep. I would move this. So let's group this together, Control G. Move this out of the way. Put this back. I would take your piece of wood and just take some blue, I always say blue painter's tape, but regular masking tape will work. Just have it where it's not in the cut. It'll keep you from trying to move it accidentally. And then vector engrave this. I don't have a laser hooked up to this computer. So you would, and see, we've got and this is what's kind of funny. They're wanting you to vector engrave that, but there's 4 parts, unless I'm missing something. So we would need to do the same thing on all these. Would be able to go to ungroup, select them all. I think the other ones are okay. Then select them with the shape tool, select them all. You know what, that might close those little bitty circles up. Let's see if it worked. Nope. Surely there's not any more than 0.02. Look at that, 0.08. I don't, maybe I'm maybe I'm missing something. Maybe that's supposed to be there. You know what, let's move this back over. Okay, I was wrong. Those spots are to those holes. So that is good, you don't have to do that. I would vector engrave this at 100 power at 50 speed. Really fast, it will not cut through and it'll mark it, okay? It'll mark all these lines. That's if all of them are hairlines, and they are. That's called vector engraving. Then take this, I'd group it back together and move it up. And then move this back over, exactly the same spot. You're nudging. And then I would run this at whatever your machine takes to cut through 1/8 inch wood. My 60-watt laser on 1/8 inch wood, I cut it at 5 speed, 100 power at 5 speed to make sure it cuts through. And then pick up the pieces, once again, figure out what to do with your logo there. And then, do the same thing to all 3 pages. And this one particular has some engraving. I would be real curious to see if we break all this apart. I'd be real curious to see what that is. That is a solid fill with a line through it, with a line also. There's actually 2 of them. That's a no-no. Even though it'll just engrave once. There's your fill. There's your fill in your line. That might cause problems, but you can engrave that, okay? And you can engrave that first. You could, there's just a few of them. You could do the exact, I'm gonna go ahead and do this one too. Let's nudge these out of the way. See, I don't understand. I would actually eliminate one of them. It's the same thing. It's a bad spot in the drawing. Let's go ahead and nudge this thing over. And then I would do the same thing with the blue, and then group them together, find and replace. Because I know it's vector engraving because this is like a grill, but you don't want it cut all the way through. This is like a line on something. But make instead of black and blue, make it black and red. Red signifies cuts. So what I would do is, after you have, let's just do it. And this has the joints too, so let's get rid of the blue first. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to find and replace again. I didn't mean to go this far, but it might help. From selection, find all. And then you need to Control G to group it together, and then because sometimes you can't move it after you do that. And then you can nudge that up. So now we need to do the same thing with a select it all. Take the shape tool and then select all the nodes and close them up. It did it. Now it's your drawing. I would go through there and check to make sure I didn't mess anything else up. And I don't think I did. None of the parts are, see, there's some more engraving parts that you could nudge over, and they're not even really in the center. And I'm not even answering his first question. His first question was he couldn't see all the lines. I can see all the lines. Maybe he was talking about the blue lines. And then I would group this together, and I would put your wood in there with your blue tape. Let's signify your wood. I would vector engrave that, but be careful, because if you vector engrave it, you're going to vector engrave that line. So you really don't need that. Vector engrave that, move that out of the way, engrave that, move it out of the way. Go ahead and make these red and make sure they're all a hairline, and then move it back and cut them out. The reason you want to do this first and this last, in case these pieces fall, just, your vector bed is a little warped, your vector bed has a little slump in it. If the pieces fall, it's not going to engrave the vector lines or those lines as good as it is on that flat piece of wood. But we've closed up all the nodes. The pieces are just going to fall out. Now, just one word of warning. I can't remember what kind of machine he had. These pieces might fall out, through your vector grate. But I don't, I have, and if you need to, I'll send you the link to the video I have. I have a box that'll catch little pieces like that. And you could just, people think, well, they're gone. Well, all you have to do is, make copies of them and move them over and recut them. They're just like little pegs. Everything else should stay on your bed, with the exception of that little hole. That little hole is going to fall. You're going to have to cut that. And maybe I'll put a link on this video of my catch-all box for cutting out small parts. But his question was, when he viewed it in wireframe, they didn't all show up. And you can see the blue doesn't show up till we put it back. And he said normal, but I always use enhanced. So maybe that's what he was talking about. Those lines are made just, I shouldn't say this because I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that's vector engraving. You might want to check with the person you bought the file from and see. Anyway, I hope that helped a little bit. Thank you for watching.